guys, thanks for clicking on my face. Today I'm going to show you a project that I started back in October and optimistically thought I would have done in time for Halloween. Oh, but how life gets in the way. So yeah, I guess we'll just throw it back to October Melody and she can take it from there. Today I just want to take you through my process of turning this bralette into a DIY mermaid top. I've done a Little Mermaid costume several times in the past, but before I used a purple bandeau bra, which that alone is a little bit scandalous. So I want to create a top that one, has more coverage, and two, just has more detail, more thought put into it. I have this lacy aqua green bralette, which is like the perfect color, but as it stands right now, it's a bit it's a bit nipply. There's really not much to it, so it doesn't really give much support or coverage, but I have some things I want to do to it that I think will make it more appropriate and more costume-like and less like I'm just wearing a bra in public. First, I want to show you my concept sketch. This is the design that I'm going for, by adding some fake purple shells to the front for more coverage and some shoulder frills to hide the bra straps. The materials that I used were a seafoam green bralette, shimmery purple fabric, matching thread and embroidery floss, 2 bra pads that I probably salvaged from an old swimsuit or sports bra, paint, elastic, and lastly some ribbon and beads for final embellishments. Everything that I used I already had on hand at home, so I didn't have to go make any purchases. First, I made a rudimentary pattern just using construction paper for both of my shoulder pieces so that they would both be cut the same. I hemmed each shoulder piece along all sides. Then I made front and back strap extension pieces by creating a simple tube out of the fabric, turning it inside out, and ironing it flat. I used a zigzag stitch for this fabric because it's so fragile and tricky, and I ironed on the lowest setting. I then added ribbon to the top side of each shoulder piece to hide where the elastic shoulder strap would go. Next, I sewed the elastic into the unhemmed side of one of the strap pieces, then pulled it through the elastic pocket on the shoulder until the unhemmed edge of the strap was also tucked inside. I pinned this down to sew it into place, then repeated the same process with the other shoulder. I pulled the elastic through the shoulders more tightly to create a ruffle before attaching a strap to the opposite side and somehow finagling the unhemmed end into the pocket. As I did this, I measured it against the length of the bralette straps, which I had adjusted to fit me, and then I measured each shoulder frill against the other to make sure that they were even. I'm sure I didn't explain all of that too well, so please leave a comment if there's something that you want me to describe further. And then my shoulder frills were done. By making them separate elastic pieces and not sewing them directly on the bralette straps, this gives me room to adjust the bralette straps in the future if I need, and the elastic will stretch to accommodate that change. Next, it was time for the shells. I marked the inner corner on each cup, then used a fabric pencil to draw how I wanted the ridges of the shells to sit, rounding them off at the ends. I cut away the excess material to create the scalloped edge, and painted each with a light purple base coat. I had to do about 3 layers of paint before the texture of the fabric was fully hidden and they looked smooth. It is now early November, and I'm still working on this stupid project. I had hoped to have it done by Halloween. Clearly that did not happen. So what I have done right now is the little shoulder ruffles are sewn with the elastic in them. They just have to be attached. And I have the seashells painted with just a purple base coat, but I still need to go back in and add some detail. So I think what I'm going to do actually to attach the shoulder ruffles, I was going to attach it with my sewing machine, but I don't trust my sewing machine to handle this fabric appropriately. So I think I'm just going to stitch it on by hand and see how that goes. And I was really excited about this when I started, but now I'm just tired. And here's the bralette with the straps sewn on. But back to the shells. After the base coat was left to dry for a couple days, I added shadows and highlights to give the shells more dimension.
This took a painfully long time, as acrylic tends to dry before you're done blending it, but I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. The next step was the hardest part, attaching the shells to the bralette so that they are even and actually cover my chest. I wanted to attach the shells at 4 different points so that the bralette could still stretch how it needed when worn. This required a really long and arduous process, with a lot of trial and error, of me sewing the shells while I wore the bralette, narrowly avoiding fatal stab wounds, and removing it to check the alignment. I went back and forth for hours sewing this while I wore it and while it was off of my body, so for obvious reasons, I did not film this part. Once I got the shells just right, I added some final touches. A pearl to bridge the boob gap, and some seafoam green embroidery floss to blend the straps into the rest of the fabric, which I did front and back. On the inside of the bra, I secured my stitches just a little bit more by tying them down with regular thread. And here's the finished product, just laying flat on my table, but let's see how it really looks.
It's finished! Yay! I'm so excited. This took me so freaking long. Yeah, it's now mid-January and I've just finished this, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it looks so cute. So one thing that I forgot to do was, okay, you know what? The wig's coming off because it's hard for me to like think or talk with that giant lump of red. Freedom! So one thing that I forgot to do was spray the boob cups, was spray them with an acrylic sealer, so I might try to do that, but I'm not sure how I would protect the fabric since they're already attached. Additionally, I might add 2 more little pearl beads right there, just because when the fabric is sitting unstretched, it looks like there's no space for more beads, but obviously when I put it on, it stretches out a lot. So there's a lot of gap here. The hand embroidery that I added here was not what I had intended to do. I was hoping to do more of like a little swirl or something that looked like ocean waves, but the fabric was really, really tricky. So I'm content with this. I think it still blends the strap into the bralette without it being like a hard stop. I didn't like how the fabric just kind of stopped in this hard edge, so I think it does blend it nicely. It just, to me, it's a small change that makes a big difference. Those are just, I guess, a few notes I have about how it turned out. Actually, going forward, another change I might like to make, but that I'm gonna do much later because I'm just done with this for now. I would like to add a clasp in the back. I don't know if that's possible. This is such a like stretchy material, but this does fit me very tight. I think when I bought it, I think this is like an extra small, and I am not an extra small anymore. So, I mean, it fits, but it's really hard to get on, and that makes me afraid that all the little delicate hand stitching work will come undone if I pull it too tightly. So I'm thinking I might look into how to add like a bra clasp to the back. That way it's easier to get on and off. But overall, I am so happy with how this turned out. I mean, it's pretty much exactly what I had in my mind, which for anyone that makes any kind of art or creative project, you know how good it feels to have a project come out so close to what you actually envisioned. That doesn't always happen. I mean, I'm really happy with this. I think it's so cute. Like, look at these little ruffles. Look at them. Yay! So hopefully I can bring this back out in like 9 months when it's Halloween again. I think after all the work I put into this, I'm gonna have to make this my Halloween costume.
So whether or not Charles decides to do a costume with me that goes with this, we'll see. I don't care. That was a long process. Mainly because of everything else I had going on, but I'm really happy that I got this done, that it turned out the way it did. Thank you for joining me for this really, really long journey. Have a wonderful day. I will see you guys next time. Bye!